Welcome everyone to today's webinar on accreditation observations about respect. Today, you're going to hear from myself, Elizabeth Seitz. You will hear from Jill Westring, Michael Clausen, and Catherine Dunbar, as well as James Brown and Tracy Hansen from Grand Forks Growth and Support Center in North Dakota. But we first want to share CQL's vision and mission. And CQL's vision is a world of dignity, opportunity, and community for all people. Our mission is that CQL is dedicated to the definition, measurement, and improvement of personal quality of life.
CQL accredits over 350 organizations in over 25 states. We accredit the Disability Division in Tennessee, all North and South Dakota organizations, and then we also accredit agencies in Canada, Ireland, and New Zealand. Some of the values of accreditation are what agencies have told us is that accreditation really does help agencies improve services. It also is that external validation, where an agency, is self-reflective and then has us and completes an assessment and then has us come in to validate that as an objective party. Agencies also say that they value our appreciative inquiry approach and the alignments of values that we have with an organization, and then of course our data that we collect and share with agencies. So we're going to talk about some of the more subtle signs of disrespect and respect today, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page and that this is a conversation about recognizing the opportunities that we all have to enhance our skills. So it is not meant to scold anyone or chastise anyone or call anybody out. It's really just to have a consensus around best practices and respect, which is why it's so important to us that James and Tracy are here today to help us talk about that. So one of the first things that we want to do is to ask you, what does respect mean to you? Not necessarily as an agency, but also as a person. You could enter either. So if you want to just enter your thoughts into the question and answer box, Mike will be helping us look at, keep track of everything. But just thinking about your personal definition of respect and what it means to you.
Okay, we have some thoughts coming in here. So Cindy says being listened to. Tracy agrees with that. Tracy says it is important to be listened to. Admiration for someone. Being valued for who I am, just the way I am. Respect is a mutual understanding of each other's opinions, thoughts, and beliefs. Taking time to listen, care for my thoughts and feelings and opinions, being valued, feeling heard, and a lot of people said being listened to, feeling heard and valued. So lots of good thoughts there.
Absolutely, and clearly there's a theme around, respect, meaning that your voice is recognized and that you're listened to and valued for your opinion. I think many of us could agree with that. So the next question that I would like you to address in the question and answer box is, what does disrespect look like to you? What does it mean to be disrespected? So again, Mike's going to be monitoring the question and answer box, and we'll be reviewing some of the comments that come in. Give people just a second to start typing.
Okay, so lots of thoughts here as well.
Mhm.
Courtney says disrespect is failure to take personal preferences, needs, wants into account. Marilyn says being dismissed. Brenda says when you are ignored or disregarded as if you don't matter. Disregard for my feelings, not being heard, not showing regard for my thoughts, not respecting my privacy, disregarding my wishes. We've got a few more coming in.
Yeah.
Not providing the dignity of risk. So lots of great thoughts there.
Absolutely. So we're going to cover some of those comments that you have made regarding what we have seen during our accreditation visits. And Elizabeth is going to get us started by talking about language and communication.
Thank you, Kate. Actually everything that people were putting in the Q&A box leads us right into talking about language and communication and how important it is. So let's talk a little bit about respect as it relates to language and communication. You know, we can really show each other respect by giving each other a voice. You know, one way that we could do that is not speaking for people. It is so important for people to be able to speak for themselves. You know, and everyone can communicate in their own way, even when it's not words that are used. And if help is needed, we really want to make sure that we're asking the person if they need help rather than just making an assumption that they want us to speak for them. I know this is one of my big signs of disrespect when I'm being spoken for without being asked if I want to be spoken for or if that's how I feel. So something to think about, you know, if someone says hello or how are you to someone receiving services, we shouldn't automatically just jump in and say, oh, they are nonverbal. Unfortunately, this is something that's heard quite a bit, but instead they should be given a chance to respond in their own way to the person that is greeting them. And let's think about all the different ways that people can have a voice. It may not be through the spoken word, but it can be through pictures or signs or communication devices. So they don't need to be 100% dependent on others to communicate. A person's voice and ability to communicate for themselves is so very important in showing respect. We also want to think about how when we're talking with people, when we're communicating with people, what is our tone of voice? Is it really syrupy and sing-songy kind of tone? Does our pitch elevate? Does it change? Or do we talk to people with disabilities, people that receive services, using the same tone as we use when we're talking to anybody else? Another thing too is, you know, it's really important to provide people information in a manner that makes the most sense for them. It's really a subtle sign of respect to make sure that the information provided to people, written or verbal, is in a way that makes sense for them. And that could be in plain language, people's first language, if not English, pictures, audio, braille, whatever works best for the person to understand the information being communicated. Importantly as well is what is the language that we're using while talking to people or about people. You know, we talk a lot about person first language, and that is of course always preferred unless the person specifically says that they want to be spoken about differently, such as identity first language, because there is no shame in disability. The words that we use to describe people and services can really create a culture of respect or disrespect. And so we have to think about when choosing the words or phrases that we use to talk about services or people. And we have to think, are these different than words we use in our everyday life? Ones that we often hear that maybe provide a negative connotation are things such as high or low functioning. Also think of the term That person is having a behavior. Those really aren't terms we use in our own lives. So, and they don't always come across, and they're really not the most respectful terms to use when talking about services or about people. It's also important to ensure that our public communications, such as websites, letterhead, social media, and even policies, really show people with disabilities in a positive manner as human beings that are socially valued and deserve the same respect as any one of us, not as people to be pitied or as a charity case. That is human beings, just like everyone else. One of my favorite things is from CQL's Shared Values Manual on page 7, where it says shared values and beliefs about people shape expectations. Values, beliefs, and expectations about people determine the way we provide services, supports, and resources. The language we use to describe people is one way that we show our beliefs and expectations for and about people with disabilities. So now I'm so excited, but James and Tracy, I'd love for you to share what advice do you have for people about respectful language and communication?
Thank you, Liz. Let's start out with Tracy.
Perfect. Yes, definitely agree that language and communication is huge in this field. Here at GFGSC, I think we've had a lot of focus on how to speak about people more respectfully in a more dignified way. So I think it's really important to heighten the awareness of all staff of how we talk about the people we support when we have to talk about people. So instead of me saying I took James to the lake, James and I went to the lake. Or instead of saying James is my person today, I'm supporting James today. So just being aware of how we speak, definitely important. Thank you for having us.
And I would like to say a big thing with language and communication is using, like Liz has said, using just your normal talk, like how you would talk to your sister or your mom or your dad. Talk with people, all people the same. Age appropriateness, that's a big thing. Some people are non-vocal, so adapt to their way of for answers. If that's facial expressions or hands, let the person, because I know a lot of people see the people that can't communicate, or they try to talk with or try to talk for the person. And that is a big thing that I think everybody should pay attention to, because a lot of people don't realize they're doing it, but they are doing it. So sit there and let the person speak or communicate for themselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, James. So let's think about how we respect and sometimes disrespect people we support through some of the actions that we take as organizations. For those of you who are familiar with the personal outcome measures, you may be familiar with the concept of big R and little r of respect. So of course, the big R of respect is all about demonstrating respect through our actions and in the way that we support people. So let's consider how we are promoting and sometimes infringing upon privacy. Some questions for consideration. Can people lock the doors and have keys or other means to control access to their homes and bedrooms? Do staff members knock and wait for the person to answer the door? And when we knock at that door, who answers it? Is it the person or is it the staff member? Who opens the person's mail? Who's checking the mail? Who is answering the phone at the person's home? Are we infringing upon people's privacy through the use of cameras or other types of monitoring? Now, remote supports and technology can support people to achieve certain outcomes, but we want to be sure that we are doing everything that we can to support privacy when we are implementing these supports. So other considerations, are we subjecting people to unnecessary assessments and checks such as weight and bowel movement charts and body checks? If there is a medical or regulatory necessity for these checks, how are we ensuring that they are carried out in a way that ensures privacy? How are we soliciting and respecting preferences for staff members who provide personal care? Are rights restrictions related to privacy receiving adequate due process? And for organizations, how do your policies and systems infringe or promote people's privacy? So other considerations in terms of privacy, dignity, and discretion. Assessment. Assessment can, of course, have pros and cons. And so we always want to make sure that assessment is focused on building skills. Does that process for assessment support dignity and respect and people's rights? So first of all, we should always ensure that all of the assessments we are implementing are absolutely necessary. Providers often implement assessments such as travel assessments, sexuality assessments, home alone assessments, and money management assessments. And if our assessment determines that a person can only be left home alone for an hour, or that person can only carry $20, we should work to identify what steps and actions are needed to be able to stay at home for an unlimited amount of time, or be able to regain control over all of their money. Okay, and it's important to remember that none of us typically have to be assessed in order to carry all our money or to be left home alone. Okay, so we want to be careful with that. So let's talk a little bit about personal information. Respect of people's personal information goes well beyond HIPAA, and it is important to remember that personal information can include written, spoken, and electronic information. So consider, are people supported to truly have control over their personal information? And that's really going to start with education. Do people know how to access that information? Is their information accessible in a format that they can understand? Are people involved in decisions about their personal information, even when there is a guardian involved? And how are we supporting people to access their electronic information and healthcare portals? Okay, James and Tracy, your thoughts?
Thank you, Michael. Well, those were all great points. I'm a big guy that agrees with rights. There's, if you have a guardian, you still have tons of rights. And my big point that I got trying to go over this point is everybody has the right to risk. Everybody has many rights. And I personally had a situation with a friend recently. A friend was told to stay out of the sun because the friend was on meds. That made my friend sensitive. And I told my friend, it's up to you at the end of the day. He had people telling him, my friend had people telling him that you have to be out of the sun. And when they left, I said, hey, it's up to you. You want to, you can take that risk. And I, as a friend, will support you. It just, you may get sick again. And so I'm big on rights. Ever since CQL was actually here at Grand Forks Growth and Sport, it's kind of opened my eyes on a lot of things. I've learned a lot from CQL when they were here, and very great, amazing things. When he was talking, when Michael was talking about like assessments or meetings with other people, some states have ISBs, OSP meetings. privacy on those meetings, like he said, talking about weight. Do you want to talk about weight with 5 to 10 different people? Or would you rather it be like a, your manager or your guardian or somebody that you trust and believe that they're going to keep your privacy away from those people that you don't want to say? So if there was 5 people in there and you only trusted one, can you trust them to say that stuff that you feel that you can't say to those other 4 people? So that is a big thing. Rights and privacy is a big thing on me. Another thing is when he talked about being scolded for behavioral or language, some people in your mind, when some people say, oh, don't talk like this, and then it's like a computer. It's like it kind of gets, oh, I'm going to get in trouble everything I say, every time I do something. I would wish that would change the perspective on many people, not only people that are supported, but people as in like staff or people that work in the field of being direct support professionals. I lost my train of thought.
That was perfect. Really well said.
Okay.
Yeah, piggybacking off what James was saying about talking about weight at meetings, I do think it's really important to talk to the people we support prior to the meeting, like, hey, we're going to be talking about this. Are you okay? And who do you want here? And maybe these topics could be discussed privately between me, you, and somebody else, or just you and somebody else, and not everybody in the entire meeting. That many of the people we support don't really have the full authority. They do, but they're not choosing who's coming to their meetings. They're not inviting people. Their program coordinator is inviting people. And so really having the conversations with the people we support about what's going to be discussed, because I can't imagine 5 to 15 people sitting around and talking about how I gained 10 pounds every 3 months in the past year. So people are people ultimately.
So a big thing is rights. That's a big right.
Way to tie it all back in. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thank you, James and Tracy. So let's explore self-expression. This is a big component of dignity and respect. And bottom line here, people receiving services are entitled to the same opportunities for self-expression as everyone else. So when we say self-expression, that might include hairstyle choices, cultural expression. It could include clothing, the expression of faith in worship, choosing a different faith, or choosing not to express any kind of faith at all. This could also include sexual expression and gender identity. This could also include getting a tattoo or a piercing. Sorry about that. And experience, education, and exposure, the 3 E's, are a critical component in self-expression. People receiving supports should have the same opportunities to explore and express their identities as everyone else. It is important that supporters refrain from bias or projecting their own values onto people they serve. James and Tracy, thoughts?
Thank you, Michael, again.
Want me to go first? Yeah, definitely. This is a deep subject that as an agency, I think that we are struggling mostly with guardians, not understanding the limitations of guardianship in respect to this. You think about a doctor tells me that I should quit smoking. I still have the ability to make an unhealthy decision, whereas somebody we support, the doctor might say, oh, they shouldn't drink pop, and then suddenly this restriction is placed on them. So never even mind getting into a relationship or wanting to have a different religion than your guardian. So I think this is a place where I think most providers would agree, and most people we support would agree, that there needs to be a little more education for guardians to understand their place in helping people self-express.
And I think over time, if you had a guardian when you were younger, and you still currently have that same guardian, over time, it may have been like 10 years could have been different than what it currently is now. On back again, like I'm a big guy on rights. 10 years ago, there may have been some restrictions that were allowed. And now it's kind of more lenient that, that's not right. You can't do that for the guardian, not for the person that the individual. Yeah, so like she said, lost my train of thought. I can't.
You're doing great.
Making choices for yourself is a big thing, and educating guardians about things that's going on personally, I think needs to happen. Not only just for the guardian, but I think the states need that education. I think for like laws and stuff, I think that they need education as well. Because with them, they get told what to do. And then the guardians are like, yeah, here's a book. I have to do this, this, and this. And that's not true. So,
Yeah. And it can be kind of a conflict of interest because, so James, can I use as an example?
yeah.
Say I'm advocating with James for something, and his guardian, which James doesn't have a guardian, James is his own guardian, but say he had a guardian and his guardian was against it, and we're trying so hard, that guardian could get angry because I'm a paid staff from an agency, and the guardian ultimately may just decide to pull somebody from our agency. So people kind of need a third party representative to help them with some of these things, to stand up to their guardians in certain cases.
Education's key. And it's not her fault that that's happening.
Thanks, James.
Thank you, Michael.
And thank you, James and Tracy. It's really great to have you here. Hello, everyone. We're going to talk a little bit about rules and expectations regarding respect. I love this picture because it really says something about who's the puppet master. And when we talk about rules and expectations, this is where it gets to where the puppet is being manipulated, if you will. Pinocchio even got to be a real boy. So we want to be sure that the puppet master is not someone other than the person themselves making those decisions, as James has been talking about, and those choices and what rights there are. So when we talk about rules and expectations, when we go in, I want to just have you think about some things that many rules and expectations are kind of there, and they're kind of imposed unnatural routines that people have simply because they live in a facility or live in a group home or have a provider, such as bedtimes. They may not have real bedtimes, but many times we find that people perceive that they have a bedtime. It's that quiet time. It's that, you got to go to bed now. Meal times, safety rules without medical necessity. And Michael spoke briefly about that earlier, but it's like safety versus that dignity of risk that James also spoke of. That the education and experience and exposure to life will give people the opportunity to change those rules and to have their voice as to what is. There are other rules that we've seen that everyone must be supervised at mealtime for a potential choking incident for everyone. So no one can eat by themselves. They can't eat in the living room. They can't eat in their bedroom. They can't go outside and have meals, but they must be there so we can ensure that they are not going to choke. Eating and drinking in the kitchen or at the table, not in your living room, not anywhere but there. Career versus a job. Again, some of the language we talk about. Joe, who loves to garden, is working in a factory on the second shift. And it's not really where he wants to be. So we have careers and people have jobs. Are there prerequisites for life? You can have your own place after you can prove to us that you can budget and pay bills and take your meds and clean your house and all on somebody else's expectations of what that might be. Earning the right to have a life. Rules and expectations as you're thinking about when you go into a house, is it the same as my house? Does everyone have the same as my house? We talk about there's appropriateness. We hear the words appropriate dress, appropriate behavior. I don't know. There are different levels of appropriateness for each of us. We want to talk about guardianship forever. Representative payee forever. There's never a fading plan for that. There's never a time, as James was saying, 10 years ago, maybe I couldn't do it, but I can do it now. So, let me do it. Or it's always been done this way. I didn't even think about it because it's always been done this way. Locked chemicals is a great example. One of the things that I ask people is, would you drink it? Would you drink the Clorox? And it's like, no. And it's like, okay, let's really think and dig down and watch for those things. Always that other people's expectations for you. So we want to keep that in our mind. And as we go forward to walk the walk and talk the talk, walk the talk, talk the walk, but also be thinking the thought. Is this something else? James, Tracy, any advice, comments?
Thank you, Jill. I personally actually had an experience this morning. Personally, I was diagnosed last year with a disorder that makes me, pass out, have seizures, episodes. And I'd taken a couple falls, and the agency I'm in said, we need to put you in a group home. And I was really scared that I was going to get my guardianship taken away. And I was really, really scared. And then today, something happened. I'm living in a group home right now. I'm planning on moving out soon. Living in a group home. And I woke up this morning and I asked if I could have pancakes. And I was told no. I was told, no, you cannot have pancakes. Nobody else is going to have pancakes. And that's back to a right. That took my right away. And me, none of you guys probably know me, but I am a guy that likes to, you upset me, we're gonna tussle back and forth. And some people will call it a behavioral issue. I don't call it a behavioral issue. I just call it, we're gonna get the point across. I told the staff there that I am not going to take my meds. I'm only going to take my seizure medicine because seizure medicine is very important. And then they came up with, oh, you can make pancakes. You can make pancakes. Go ahead and make pancakes. And then I said, okay, that was great. That was simple. I'll take all my pills now. So it was a simple thing. So the eating and drinking outside the kitchen, eating and drinking in general, in a group home like I live in myself, they don't want you eating or drinking whatsoever outside of the kitchen. They don't even, I carry a water bottle all around I was put into a wheelchair because of my falling. They don't even let me take water bottles into my room. I fought them for that. And I didn't physically fight them, but I told them, hey, I'm taking water into my room. Meal time. There's a set time that even if I'm not hungry, I got to eat at 5 o'clock. So if I'm not hungry, everybody eats at 5 o'clock. I don't think that's right. I was living independent before moving into a group home. I don't know why. I really don't know why everybody's got to eat at 5 o'clock. But that changed for me. And I told them, if I'm not hungry at 5 o'clock, I spoke up to myself. If you ask Elizabeth, I'm a big self advocate for myself and for my peers and friends, because I love people getting what they want. And if they want to have pancakes in the morning, if somebody wants to have pancakes, not just myself, and somebody says no, I'm going to speak up for them. I had a friend last weekend that something happened and they went directly towards the friend, and I felt attacked because my friend was being attacked verbally. And I stepped in and said, hey, leave my friend alone. You can go talk to staff, or you can go talk to somebody else. Like, leave him alone. I felt better after that. I'm a guy that feels great about that. Career paths, what the person wants to do, or if the guardian says no, you're going to work at an Ace Hardware. That's a big thing. My personal part is I didn't feel forced to work at some place, but I like working with children. So once I left the school district on helping children, because, they had a big upset with money funding, they basically sent me over to a gym where I don't like working. It was that or not having a job. So all good points Jill has pointed out. I don't think I have, guardianship. I'm a big person. Well, I already talked about guardianship. I think I don't, we could talk forever about guardianship and how you should be treated. So we could have another webinar for that. But thank you, Jill. Do you have
Thank you,
anything?
James. Nicole?
I have two quick things. First of all, I wanted to make it clear that we are talking to you guys from the Grand Forks Growth and Support Center, which is a day program and not a residential agency.
Mhm.
And then the second thing is I just love this conversation because I think it brings awareness to the fact that service providers are literally making the people we support jump through hoops to earn a right to have a decent life. So people shouldn't have to earn to have a good life. Other than that, I think James said it all perfectly. You did it.
Thank you.
What a great segue, James and Tracy, to caregiving versus supporting. This is kind of a bit of a passion of mine, is to really just treat people like people. And the expectations that we have for people with disabilities, we really need to look at and make sure that we don't have higher expectations, for people with disabilities than we have for each other. Why was, and James, if you don't mind, I'm going to just use your example of moving to a group home. We want to make sure if that transition, number one, isn't necessary, and number two, it doesn't have to be permanent. So James shouldn't have to, quote unquote, graduate to move back out on his own. The agencies should just put the proper supports in place for someone to live the lives that they want. So that would include, like Mike talked about earlier about, over assessing, are those assessments necessary? We have to talk about risk aversion versus risk awareness. We want to be aware of risks, but we really have to support people to take reasonable risks. And what we don't want to do is try to talk people out of taking a risk, or put artificial roadblocks in the way. I think one of the things, at least in my personal experience with when I was on the provider side, this was really hard to do because, the agency could be liable if someone gets hurt. And obviously we don't want anyone to get hurt, but we also can't what if ourselves to death. We can't keep saying, if I walk, go for a walk, what if, an airplane falls out of the sky and lands on my head? You have to talk about those risks that would reasonably affect anyone else. And then supporting someone to take that risk that that they want to take. Back to expectations for people with disabilities. What I am seeing a little less of this, but what we often see is that people with disabilities have to reach perfection before they can move forward in their life goals. So, to move out into an apartment by myself, I have to learn how to, cook 3 healthy meals. I have to make sure that I can balance my checkbook. I have to make sure I can budget. I can take all my medicine by myself. I have to learn not to, let random people in my house. I mean, there's this list of things. And if you think about your own life and when you moved out of, your family home or wherever you moved out of to be on your own, did you check all those boxes? I know I didn't. We have to learn from our mistakes. And that's the best way to support someone, is to learn from those mistakes. The other thing is that we also have to forgive people. If something happened a long time ago, the person made a mistake, then that is not necessarily true that the person is going to keep making the same mistake. So we see this a lot when it comes to sharps. The knives are forever locked up if one person does something dangerous with a knife. Instead of teaching that person proper knife safety, we just lock them all up. So one of the things that we also have to do when it comes to caregiving versus supporting is to make sure that our DSPs are on the same page. And so helping DSPs develop those skills, helping them to evaluate circumstances, and making sure that people can have that staff can have the autonomy to support people to make decisions. DSPs wear so many hats, and they have to be supported by the agency to do the job that they're supposed to be doing. We've already talked about guardianship. Look at supported decision making. Don't automatically assume that if someone had a guardian at 18 years old because that's what they were told to do, and the person's now 48, they've got 48 years of experience that they can base decisions on. So a person doesn't have to have a guardian forever. And it's, looking at that presumption of competence. I think very often what happens is that if someone has a disability, and we've talked about this kind of throughout today's session, we may assume that they don't have decision-making capabilities if they communicate differently than everybody else does. So it's really, really important to presume competence, and that really makes a big difference in caregiving versus over supporting. I think we could go on about this topic for another couple hours, but James and Tracy, what are your thoughts?
This is a very great topic. Since coming to Grand Forks Growth and Support, I've been here for a little over 3 months. I've actually been brought on by Tracy to do the training with the new staff that come here. Even some of the college kids that come here on active support training. A lot of doing for and doing with. A lot of people do things like DSPs do things for other people. I'm trying to get to everybody should work together. If you're a DSP, if you're an individual supported, and when you're looking at an individual, does the person need that much support, or are you assuming that person needs that much support? Because 2 different things. And if you're assuming, question yourself. is that question going to be, do I think they need, or should I let them try to do it and see if they do really need? Because if you're going to be able to tell if somebody needs assistance. So when you get to a doing with, you're going to be able to tell if they're struggling. If they're struggling when they put something in the microwave, then you're going to want to go over and help them out. Because me personally, I have anxiety. And if I'm struggling with something, I might not always say, hey, Tracy, I need help. Or Liz, I need help. Or I might not say that. So DSPs, they need to be aware of that. And when I do the training, I talk about that. I'm going through not an issue on myself, but relationships, friendships with other people. When those other people, the guardians think, oh, they can pick who they're friends with. And that's not true. That individual can choose who they want to be friends with and who they don't want to be friends with. So I'm dealing with that situation. I am going to bring up the thing about choices, because this is the last thing on this. I joke around when I do the training. Everybody has choices, and you go back to the rights. Go figure, James with rights. I bring up this all the time about naked bungee jumping. Like, can I go do naked bungee jumping? Are you going to stop me from doing naked bungee jumping? Are you going to stop me from doing something? Like Catherine said, are you going to stop me from walking across the street? Because of what if? What if I get hit by a car, right? There's always a danger if he's crossing this, or if he's running into traffic because there's something going on, or is he just crossing the street? And that's a big thing with doing for and doing with. Are you going to let him do what he wants, or are you going to stop him from doing what he wants? Anything else?
Yeah, I just think it's an important topic, and it's actually a topic we've been talking about quite a bit at our agency, because we purposefully hire staff who are very caring people, and we want our staff to care about their coworkers and the people we support in the agency. But if staff don't understand the difference between being a caregiver and a support staff, they enter into this role of just taking care of people, doing things for people, where really we need our staff to support people to be as independent as possible, to do with, or even step back and see what people can do themselves before stepping in. So I think it was well said, Mr. Brown.
And she did say one thing, something happened with, this is personal, something happened with me in the past, a couple of years ago. And it still haunts me to this day. It's still, they still look at it and say, oh, we got to worry about this, or we got to worry about that. It still is something that is on my OSP, that it's some OSPs, it's a high danger, high risk, and it's still on there. And I don't understand why, as the expectation of perfection, 0 incidents in the past 2 years. It hasn't happened again, but yet it's still on, and it's still being held against me from something several years ago.
I can't even imagine if before people even met me, they read my plan from, I'm 37, so from when I was 16 till now, and they read that before they even shook my hand and looked into my eyes. So it's unfortunate that many people with disabilities, their whole life story is shared way too early. Or even at all in this case.
Yeah. And then they're not forgiven for mistakes like the rest of us could be, you know. Thank you, James and Tracy. I'm so glad you're joining us on this webinar. What you're saying is very powerful. Mike?
Okay, thank you. So let's think about, why does all of this matter? Now, of course, James and Tracy gave us lots of compelling reasons for why it's important to promote dignity and respect. As a former direct support professional, I'll be the first one to acknowledge that sometimes promoting dignity and respect can create challenges for service providers and those who support people. Oftentimes it's easier to simply care for people than it is to support them to make choices and provide that dignity of risk. So we need to acknowledge that it can create some challenges, but we've given you lots of reasons why it's important. James and Tracy have given you lots of reasons to think about why we should try really hard to promote dignity and respect. We're going to give you a few more here. One of the things that we need to understand is that when we deny people the opportunity to take risks, make choices, and even sometimes fail, we are denying them the opportunity to learn from the experience, education, and exposure that is necessary to make informed choices and experience success. So we've all had the opportunity to fail and to learn, and people that receive your support deserve that as well. All people are entitled to the same rights, protections, and dignity and respect, no matter whether or not they have a disability or receive services. And promoting dignity and respect is not only the right thing to do, but promoting dignity and respect supports a higher quality of life overall. And of course, with us being CQL, we actually have the data to prove that. So let's take a look. I'm not going to go too deep into the data here, but just to demonstrate this for you, people who have the outcome met of people are respected have a higher number of outcomes present overall. So, and it's quite startling, actually. It's a range of 1.8 times more likely for realizing goals to 8.4 times more likely to be treated fairly. So when they have that outcome present, people are respected, they are more likely to be healthy, they are more likely to be safe, people are more likely to be free from abuse and neglect, have the relationships that they desire, choose where they work, choose where they live. I mean, we can go on and on, but it has a huge impact on quality of life. Okay, and just another statistic for you here, when people have that outcome present, people have significantly fewer behavior events when they are supported by an agency that trains staff to promote dignity and respect, compared to those people with IDD supported by agencies that did not train support staff to promote dignity and respect. So bottom line here, folks, is that when we promote respect, we give people a higher quality of life overall. So with that, I will turn it back over to James and Tracy.
So to summarize the idea of respect, James is going to give us kind of the lightning round final word on respect.
So go for it.
Respecting everybody's wishes. That's a big thing. Respecting their rights, respecting the person. I do want to thank Elizabeth, Michael, Catherine, Jill, and Seth on behalf of Grand Forks Growth and Support on inviting us to this webinar. And it was, I have an honor to learn a lot from CQL, and honored to learn a lot from the agencies itself, different agencies. It's great to learn all this stuff. But other than that, I know, Tracy, do you have anything to say?
Oh man, thank you guys very much. We really appreciated being part of this, and we feel our agency has worked very hard on a lot of these topics, so it's an honor.
And come to Vegas.
Come see our show.
What a great segue, James. Thanks. That actually takes us over to, just really quickly before we get to that, our resources. Seth has been putting a lot of different resources in the chat box throughout this webinar, but here's some additional resources, articles, newsletters, great things around respect that you can look for. And where James has taken us really is away from resources over to Vegas for our conference. If you didn't already know, we're holding our 2022 conference, Light Bulb Moments, in Las Vegas from October 11th through 14th. And of course, for any of you that have been to our conferences before, we are going to have amazing, wonderful, engaging keynotes, breakout sessions, networking opportunities. And this year it actually is available in either a traditional in-person conference, or you can join us virtually through the Zoom events platform. So if you're not up to traveling, you don't want to travel, or you just don't trust yourself in Vegas, that is another option for you. All sessions will be live streamed. So if you want to learn more about it, Seth has put a link in the chat box for you, so you can register or just learn more about the conference itself. We're also on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, and regularly CQL is posting a lot of great resources and articles, other information for providers. We of course encourage you to join our e-community on Facebook, where members share resources, ask questions, provide support, and identify solutions for common challenges. And again, the link has been placed in the chat box for you. Lastly, just our contact information is up here. Feel free to contact us using the info located on the slide here. James and Tracy, of course, can also be reached not only by the phone number at Grand Forks Growth and Support Center, but also on their Facebook page. So check them out as well. I think we have about a few minutes left. So if there are any questions, comments, feedback, anything, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to use the Q&A box to do that.
You can get my autograph at Vegas. CQL has invited me to Vegas, or invited Tracy and I. So we will.
Excited.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll be the head speakers.
You know, big deal. Awkward giggles.
Yeah.
So
So,
I'm not seeing any questions.
Yeah,
She
Angela.
says, see you in Vegas, James.
We do have still a few moments. If anybody has any questions, comments, thoughts for the Q&A box, feel free to put them in there. Angela says she's coming for your autograph. That's for sure, James. So, and don't forget about Tracy. She's amazing. So
Sidekick.
She's
thanks.
decent.
Decent at best.
she's the decent sidekick to James's
That's right.
superhero. So
Thanks, Angela.
So James and Tracy, just to reiterate what everybody is saying, CQL certainly is very grateful for your insight and your expertise and for being willing to share it with the people who have been listening to this webinar and the ones who will listen in the future. So thank you so much. Everything you've said has just been very powerful, and I'm sure that others appreciate it too.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.